Welcome to the NBA Triple Double Show powered by SportsMemo. I'm your host, Ronald Cabang, also known as UCapper on SportsMemo.com, at UCapper Sports on Twitter. I'll be joined by Moneyline Matt today. And today is Monday, guys. We always talk about 3 games per show, but I do want to talk about some of the promos that we got going on over at SportsMemo.com. Today is Monday. That means it's $9 Monday over at Wager Talk and SportsMemo.com. All picks and packages on the site are just $9. While you're there, also utilize the live odds pages, utilize the free picks page as well. Free picks and analysis, not only on just NBA, but college basketball. A lot of college basketball going on, some soccer, all that stuff going on over on the free picks page over at sportsmemo.com. Once again, $9 Monday, all picks and packages on the site today are just $9 from your favorite cappers over at sportsmemo.com. Before you head over there after the show, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button here on YouTube. It only takes a couple of clicks. It also helps our show grow tremendously. With that said, let's get Matt here in the building. Matt, this weekend I went pretty light. Saturday was positive overall with NBA and UFC. I didn't touch anything yesterday. I didn't like the slate yesterday, so I didn't play anything. But how was your weekend this weekend?
Yeah, not a bad weekend. Kept it pretty light as well, kind of like you said. On Saturday, I had 2 plays, ended up going 2-0. Actually gave out both of my client plays over on Wager Talk last call as well, so that was cool. Got 2 hits over there. And then yesterday, those Sunday slates are always a little funky. Like, there's always some weird stuff going on, a lot of blowouts, stuff like that. Honestly, I only had 3 plays, and I kind of regret putting out 3. I might just start leaving Sundays alone because, like I said, those slates are always wonky, some weird stuff going on. So I ended up going 1-2, still had a positive weekend, but ready to hit this slate. There's a lot of high totals, pace-up matchups. You guys know I love that, so ready to break it down.
Yeah, pace up matchups mean you're targeting some props, right? Well, exactly. With that said, let's go into the slate here. With the first game up, we got is the Grizzlies and the Mavs here. Grizz 40-26 on the season on a 2-game winning streak. They did beat this same Mavs team on Saturday at home. Now they're in Dallas, and this is the first of a 3-game road trip for them. Mavs 34-34 on the season. They're on a 2-game losing streak. They've lost 8 of their last 11 games as well. This is a one-off home game between road trips for them. They do have the Spurs on deck Wednesday, so they don't really have to travel too far. They were missing Kyrie and Luka on Saturday versus the Grizzlies. They ended up losing, but covering the spread here. From an injury perspective, I do see Luka is out again. Kyrie is considered questionable for now. On the Grizz side, Steven Adams and Ja are still out. From a matchup perspective, they have split the matchup so far this season, 1-1 with home teams getting the win. But the Mavs have covered both games so far. Are we looking at the home team again here on this matchup, Matt, or are you looking at a prop perspective?
Yeah, so I'm actually looking at a total in this matchup. And for this matchup, I'm actually looking at the over 224.5, because this is a spot where the Grizzlies are traveling on the road to face off against the Dallas Mavericks. And the Grizzlies are coming off 2 straight home wins against the Warriors and the Mavs. This is a back-to-back. Now they're traveling on the road, and they're looking to go into Dallas to try and keep this going. And to your point, this is a spot where the Mavericks will continue to be without Luka. But with the line being where it is, I do expect Kyrie to suit up in this matchup. And when you take a look at the Dallas Mavericks from before Kyrie and after, once Kyrie was added to this Dallas Mavericks lineup, the Mavericks pace picked up tremendously. And in addition to that, the point totals have been going up as well. This is a Mavericks team, even before Kyrie was added, they were hitting overs while at home. They're 21-13-1 to the over at home this season. And again, like I was saying, they have become a much faster team. And when you take a look at this Memphis Grizzlies team, their defense is not near what it was with Steven Adams in the lineup. Steven Adams was huge for that defense, locking down that middle. He has that height, he has that size, little bit of everything. And when you're replacing him with guys like Xavier Tillman, you got to remember Brandon Clark went down as well. This middle has definitely opened up a lot. And when you have guys like Kyrie who can slash to the basket, who can get it from the outside, a little bit of everything, even though Luka is not in not going to be suiting up in this matchup, I still do like the over here because, even guys like Tim Hardaway Jr., he's generally good for a 20-point plus game, 1 out of every 4, I would say. So he's definitely someone who I could see kind of coming to play in this matchup. Same with Christian Wood. Not a ton of size. When Christian Wood tends to struggle, it's when there's a power forward or a center who is a bigger body, someone who can kind of man him up easily. He can't back down, things of that nature. So Christian Wood is actually due for kind of a solid match here as well. So for me, I'm definitely taking a look at that over 224.5. I know it definitely seems lower, so it kind of makes you want to go take this over here. But for me, I think it's the play to go with.
That makes sense to me. I think a lot of things initially were pointing towards the under just from a trend perspective. But if you look at that total at 224, I feel like it is a little bit too low here. The Grizzlies, like you mentioned, I think they're starting to open up their offense a little bit. They initially struggled without Steven Adams and John Morant also the first few games that he was out. But I feel like they're figuring it out offensively. I think, like you mentioned, Tillman has been a key guy at that center position to kind of do what Steven Adams was doing originally to open up the offense. Tyus Jones, Jones as well. He's been a really great offensive. I think his IQ, his offensive IQ in this for this team has been super high lately, and I think that's the reason why their offense has been doing a little bit better as well. There's a few games after the All-Star break where Bane kind of struggled offensively, and I think he's getting into a rhythm right now too. Also, like you mentioned, that the Mavs have been sort of a pace-up team since Kyrie joined the squad, and their defense has struggled as well from that aspect since he's joined too. So yeah, I think trend-wise, a lot of things are pointing towards the under, but from an eye perspective, it does seem like the total is a little bit too low, and that this game should go over. One thing that I was looking at was actually a prop. Jaren Jackson under his 8.5 rebounds and assists. He's only gone over this number in one game out of his last 8. In that span, he's averaging 6.9 rebounds and assists per game in his career versus the Mavs. He's only gone over this number once in 8 games, and that was back in February of 2020. If we look at the numbers post All-Star break, he's averaging 0.8 assists per game on less than 2 potential assists. He's averaging about 14 rebound chances per game, but he's only grabbing 45% of those chances. So he's not really putting that full effort into grabbing these rebounds, even when they're in his range. A lot of the rebounds are going to Tillman or even some of the wing players. If I look post All-Star break as well, Dallas has only allowed 6 players to get over 9 rebounds on them. So for me, a lot of things to me are pointing towards the under rebounds and assists for Jaren Jackson. Like I said, we're pretty much just asking him to get 9 rebounds here because he doesn't put up a lot of assists and he doesn't get a lot of opportunities either. For me, I'm looking at a stat line like 7 rebounds, 0 assists from Jaren Jackson. So to the under 8.5 is the way that I would go on this one. Staying away from the points, obviously, just because like Matt was talking about, sort of like a over game. So if there's not a lot of opportunities for rebounds as well, if they're hitting their shots in this one, yeah, definitely under in the rebound side. Any last words for that game, Matt?
No, I definitely like where you're looking with that. Jaren Jackson, he's one of those guys who you always think he can creep up in the rebounds. His line will be at like 5.5, 6.5. You're like, oh, that looks pretty low for a 7-footer, and then he'll have 3 rebounds or something like that. So I'm totally with you. I think Jaren Jackson, in terms of assists and rebounds, is definitely a fade. The only thing that you have to look out for now and then is he loves to do that little hook shot around the basket, and then it'll hit the back
offensive
rim,
rebounds,
and then he'll get that little tip. That's the only thing you have to worry about with him, because in terms of defensive rebounds, he really doesn't get that many. And like I said, for a 7-footer, a guy who can jump out of the gym, you would think he'd get more. But I'm with you there. I think the under is definitely the look for JJ. Points, I think I would be opposite. I think I actually like the look at his points tonight. But in terms of rebounds, assists, under.
Yep, love it. All right, well, at least we're aligned on that one. Suns Warriors is the next one. Suns are 37-30, coming off an outright loss to the Kings at home. Prior to that, though, they were on a 4-game winning streak. This is a one-off road game between homestands. This is also the first leg of back-to-back games. Have a key game against the Bucks on deck tomorrow. to kind of really prove where they are right currently towards the end of the season to play one of the top teams in the league. Warriors on the opposite side, 35-33. They're coming off a huge OT win over that same Bucks team that the Suns are going to be playing. That stopped a 3-game losing streak for them. This is the second of a 2-game homestand before 5 straight road games. From an injury perspective, KD and Shamet are out for the Suns. Wiggins and Payton are out for the Warriors. Kuminga is questionable. Iggy and Draymond are both probable, so we should see them play today. From a matchup perspective, the Suns have dominated this matchup so far this season, winning and covering all 3 games so far. All 3 games also flew over the total. Suns scored at least 125 in each of those games. Matt, are you looking at a total here again, or are you looking at some other aspect of it?
Yeah, I'm once again looking at the total here, Ron. This is a spot where the Suns are traveling on the road to face off against the Warriors. The Suns are coming off a home loss to the Sacramento Kings, and the Warriors that overtime win against the Milwaukee Bucks, like you said. And to your point, these are 2 teams who have flew over the total their 3 games prior to this. And because of that, I'm actually looking under. It's very rare that the books won't adjust when a game has gone over like that 3 times in a row. This is a big game for both teams. The Suns coming off that home loss to the Sacramento Kings. And man, that's just one thing with the Kings too. They are playing some good basketball. They have really shown that they can go out and beat any team on any court. They've really been impressing me. But, again, coming back to this game, in this spot, I think these 2 teams match up very well against each other. As on top of that, the DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul pick and roll is an advantage that they have with a lot of teams. And, Kevon Looney is one of those guys who he has a big body. He can get his hands up. He's very good at rebounding, getting into your chest, playing good defense. And I could definitely see him frustrating DeAndre Ayton tonight. And DeAndre Ayton is kind of that wild card for this team. They go as he goes. Of course, Devin Booker is going to go out and have his 28 points every single night, but DeAndre Ayton being that key guy, can he get in that 17, 18-point range? Can he get those 10 rebounds? And actually tonight, I don't think he does. Another spot that I'm looking, you have that rivalry between Devin Booker and Klay Thompson. They always want to play well against each other. But this is just one of those games where I feel it being a slower style of game. Both teams, defenses stepping up. And you have to remember, too, with that Phoenix Suns trade with Kevin Durant is out right now. What the Suns did, they traded away a lot of their depth on top of that. So they don't exactly have those other outside guys, like the Mikal Bridges to come in and make some shots. Yes, they do have Cameron Payne back, but Cameron Payne is going to have to get his feet under him a little bit. And let me tell you, Cameron Payne is one of those guys. He's got a little Russell Westbrook in him. When you see him chucking up a couple threes and he starts missing them, he might just keep shooting and he might keep missing them. All right. So that's another thing that makes me like this under here, because he is going to be leading that second unit at this point in time. And, the Warriors do play slower at home, 14-20-1 to the under while at home this season, while the Suns have been kind of 500 to the over-under, 17-16-1 to the over. But once again, with these 2 teams hitting over 3 times in a row, very rare to see it hit 4 times in a row without the books correcting. So for me, I'm with the under 236 for the Suns and the Dubs in this matchup.
Yeah, I actually like that look a lot, and I'm going to break it down a little bit more in the best bet section, so that's a little sneak peek of what I'm going to be picking, but I like that under too as well. Both teams playing solid defense lately. One thing that I was looking at was actually from a side perspective. I think the Warriors can get it done. I think this is a spot here where we see the home road split for the Warriors, how well they do at home. They're looking at, 28-7 straight up, 23-11 against the spread when playing at home. I know they didn't get it done against the Suns earlier this season at home, but I think this is they have a sense of urgency here to close out the season pretty strong. They've also gone under in 5 of their last 6 games, really because of their defense. It could have gone 6 straight under if it weren't for an OT game. To me, I think if we look at focusing on those higher totals as well, the 230 or greater, because right now it opened up pretty high and it's steamed down a little bit, but I think there's still room there. From a trend perspective, as far as spread, 28-1 against the spread in those home games with a total of 230 or greater. Like I mentioned, that home road split is kind of crazy for the Warriors. They continue to struggle on the road, but at home, just very dominant, averaging 119.2 per game, allowing 110.9 per game. The Suns on the opposite side, they score less. They also allow more on the road. They're averaging 224.8 points per game as far as combined in those road dog situations. And for most of it, it's really because they're allowing, they're allowing, like I said, they're scoring less and they're allowing more on the road. One thing that I looked at from the 2020 NBA season, this is a league-wide trend. Since the 2020 NBA season, road dogs looking to beat and cover against the same team for a fourth time in a row in the same season. 0-8 straight up, 0-8 against the spread. This includes both regular season and the playoffs. That trend points towards taking the Warriors here -4.5. The other thing that I could look at as well is possibly look at the Suns team total under. You mentioned the depth that they lost when they traded for KD, and with KD out, that offense is really going to struggle here, especially if they focus in on trying to stop Booker. They're going to force the other guys to score. In that sense, I don't know if that's going to be able to happen for them. So I think under their team total also is a possible look as well. Did you see anything from a prop perspective? I know even though we look at unders in this game, Matt, there's guys like Booker and Curry who could still go over their team total, their PRA or their props in an under game, especially with a total that's already pretty high. But did you have anything as far as those guys?
Yeah, if there was anyone I would look at tonight, I do think the Chris Paul double-double is a pretty good option once again. I gave that out on last call, and Chris Paul was a plus 140 double-double on Saturday. I'm not sure what he is, but if he's plus money again, that's very much worth it to me. And then again, to your point, Devin Booker once again. Devin Booker, points plus assists, has absolutely been killing it. He's at around 31.5, and I looked at him and Clay because they do have that rivalry kind of going on right now, and every time they face off against each other, they both want to ball out. Clay is getting back to that 23.5 range. I'm not incredibly comfortable with that. When he gets in that 21.5 range is generally when I want to take Clay. But again, if I were to go anywhere, I think it's Booker. Without Kevin Durant, we talked about them losing some of that depth. Chris Paul generally doesn't take more than 10 shots a game. It's a game where I also see DeAndre Ayton struggling because of Kevon Looney, like I said before. And that leaves a lot of usage, a lot of opportunity, a lot of shots for Devin Booker. And in the last game against the Kings, yes, I believe he ended up hitting his point prop, but he wasn't incredibly efficient. He wasn't playing that great. I think against the Warriors, his shot's going to be a little bit better in that mid-range, maybe knock down 2 threes in this matchup too. So that's one thing with Devin Booker as well. If you see him hit 2 or 3 threes in a matchup, then he's definitely going to have one of those big nights. And I think this is going to be one of those volume nights for him. So it definitely could be tonight against the Warriors.
Yeah, I like it. It's like when he gets into a rhythm, he really gets he gets streaky. He's like streaky, very streaky, especially at that mid range. Yeah, exactly. Let's move on to this last game here, the Bucks and the Kings. Bucks 48-19 on the season, coming off an outright loss though to the Warriors that we just talked about in OT on Saturday. Second game of a 3-game West Coast road trip. This is also the first leg of back-to-back games with the Suns on deck tomorrow in Phoenix. The Kings, big surprise team in the West here, 40-26 on the season. I think they're second in the West right now. Currently on a 3-game winning streak after beating the Suns in Phoenix on Saturday. This is a one-off home game before heading east to face the Bulls in Chicago to start off a 4-game East Coast road trip. Injury perspective, Wesley Matthews is probable. Giannis is still questionable from what I know. Not sure if he's going to be playing today. The Kings are completely healthy, and I think that's one thing that's kind of put them in position, in the position they're in today is really the consistency of being able to have everyone playing. From a matchup perspective, the Bucks won and covered the first matchup in Milwaukee, 126-113 on a 6.5 point favorite situation there. The Kings, man, they continue to be a huge surprise. They're the top offensive rated team in the league post All-Star break, 8-1 straight up during that time frame. But they're still 27th in defensive rating in the league during that time frame. Bucks 9th in offensive rating, but they play strong defense even on the road there. Bucks and Kings are first and third in pace post All-Star break as well. It seems like it should be an over or nothing, but this total is really high. I'm at 244.5 currently. What are your thoughts on this one? Are you looking at anything from a side or total perspective, or just focusing in on the props here with that high pace?
Yeah, I'll definitely. My best bet is from this game, so I will definitely have a prop or props from this matchup. But for me, I'm actually looking at a side here. I'm going with the Kings +2, and a lot of this has to do with kind of what you talked about. The Kings are kind of the surprise right now in the Western Conference, and they really have impressed me throughout this season, and especially after the All-Star break. For a while, I think a lot of people have expected this Kings team to slip at some point in time, and they just keep going on and they just keep beating tough teams no matter where they're at. And this is a spot where the Bucks are traveling on the road to face off against the Kings, and it's going to be a tough game for the Bucks and the Kings because this is a Bucks team who's coming off an overtime loss against the Golden State Warriors. They want to get right against Sacramento. They have that look ahead spot against the Phoenix Suns, like you were saying as well. And Giannis is questionable coming into this matchup. I think this is a Kings team that a lot of people underestimate at this time. And this is a Kings team that plays good at home. They're 21-13 straight up at home this season. The Bucks are 20-13 while on the road. So still a very solid road team, but they're definitely better at home on top of that. And, this is a spot where, when I take a look at this Milwaukee Bucks team, and, right now, Giannis is questionable. I personally don't expect him to play, but if you're weary about that news, you can definitely wait on it and get an official ruling on Giannis before taking this game. But for me, I would actually take the Kings with Giannis, or I would take the Kings without Giannis. And, obviously, I feel more comfortable without Giannis in the lineup because when you break down this Bucks team in comparison to this Kings team, I don't think this Bucks team has the depth of, with the Sacramento Kings. If you're without Giannis, you have to rely on Drew Holiday, you have to rely on Bobby Portis, guys like that. I know Chris Middleton is back in that lineup, but he's definitely not himself just yet at this point in time. Mm-hmm. And if Drew Holiday is off or if Bobby Portis is off, I'm unsure if this Bucks team can pick up the slack against Sacramento. With Sacramento, they've proven time and time again that if De'Aaron Fox has an off night, if Domantas Sabonis has an off night, with Domantas Sabonis, he never really has an off night. Of course, he'll have an off night in terms of scoring, but in terms of rebounding and assisting, he is always involved in that game in one way or another. But if Fox is off, if Sabonis is off, you still have guys who pick up the slack. With Kevin Huerter, we've seen him go off. Harrison Barnes has gone off. Malik Monk. They have so many key role players that can go out and get 20 points or go out and make that bucket that gets the crowd going, or it is in Sacramento on top of that. And I feel like this Kings team tricks other teams into playing their style of basketball. You look at that game with the Phoenix Suns, how fast that game was for a long period of time, and then you look at halftime and the Kings are winning once again because they got the Suns to play their style of basketball. And I think that's what happens here. I think they're in Sacramento. I think the Kings get out and run. The Bucks love to get out and run on top of that. To your point, Ron, one of the fastest teams in terms of pace since the All-Star break. So this is a spot for me where, you take a look at a team like the Sacramento Kings. You take a look at a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder. Those two teams, I swear, are always slept on, and for some reason they're getting points at home. So for me, I like the look of the Kings here, and I wouldn't be surprised if they win this one outright.
I like that look a lot. I think you bring up a lot of great points as far as the consistency on the Bucks side, especially on the offense. On the road there, if we look at them on the road, they've been a strong under team this season, 23-10 to the under, averaging and allowing 112.1 per game. That includes multiple OT games. From a matchup perspective, this does seem like an over or nothing spot, but like I said, this is a super high total, 244.5. If we look at the Kings here this season with a total of 240 or greater, they've gone under in 5 of their last 6 games where the total is 240 or greater. If we look at the Bucks as well, I was just looking at this while you were breaking it down because you talked about the Bucks here and their struggles offensively, but they're 4-0 to the under on the road when they're playing the first leg of back-to-back games, and they got the Suns on deck, which is to me a pretty solid look ahead spot there. I think they want to show up against the Suns as well, even though the Kings are above the Suns in the record as far as standings goes. I think they see the Suns more of a threat than the Kings, in my opinion. I'm not sure, like, mentally where they are at in this game specifically, but just situationally, it does seem like an under game here. If we look at the Kings as home dogs, you mentioned that they get disrespected at times when they're the home dog, and for the most part, they're doing well against the spread, 5-2 against the spread. But if you look at them with these higher totals against the spread, as home dogs with a total of 230 or greater, they're 2-1-1 to the under. That one game that went over went into OT, and then the one that push went it pushed because it was late game fouls that pushed it over to the to push the total basically with free throws. So a lot of things are pointing towards the under here. It's an ugly play if you like to play that, if you want to play that, just because of the pace, right? First and third, great offensive minded teams. It's just a situationally. It seems like it might be the under. Under might be the way to go. You brought up. You're going to talk about one of the guys that I was also looking at from a prop perspective. But one guy you mentioned, Chris Middleton, who's been struggling offensively, but from scoring aspect, but he's actually been doing well dishing the ball, especially when he actually, they're ramping up his minutes. This is a pace up game as well. In the last 6 games post All-Star break, where he played over 20 minutes, he's gone over the 5.5 assist mark in 4 of those games, averaging 6.2 per game. He's actually averaging 10 potential assists per game as well in that span. Like I said, in this pace up play, his ramping up of minutes as well. I think he gets a lot of assist opportunities here, especially if Giannis does sit again and ends up playing tomorrow. Uh, he's going to get a lot of opportunity. He's going to have a lot of usage. The ball's going to be in his hands a lot. So I think there's opportunity for him to get over that 5.5 assist mark. But like I said too, just like in the previous game, even though I'm looking at a possible under on the full game, props can go over just because of the style of play and the pace, and also just because of the totals way too high already. With that said, the Kings, like you said, on the side perspective, that would probably be the only way that I go here too. I think situationally, it's a fading the Bucks. It might be the way to go from a side perspective. All right. Well,
Yeah.
with that said, Matt, we broke down 3 games. Oh, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, real quick. You were talking about Chris Middleton a little bit, and just briefly, I wanted to branch off on that because there's a lot of opportunity, and I have been talking about how Chris Middleton is inconsistent and things of that nature, and a lot of that does have to do with the fact that he's coming back from injury. His minutes are slowly going to get ramped up, so you have to understand that when a player comes back from injury, let's say they start with 25 minutes, that's game one. Okay, game two is generally going to be around 27, 29 minutes. Game three, they might get ramped up to 31 minutes. Game four, game five, you guys see where I'm going. You get 2 to 4 minutes added generally by each game you return from injury. So what that means is there's always going to be opportunity with players like Chris Middleton because he was a 20-point per game scorer at one point in time. And when I say opportunity, I mean those little sprinkles on maybe the 25 points, which he'd probably be like plus 400, plus 500. Even a 30 point, he might be plus 1,000, a little bit higher. And, it's not something that's going to happen every night, but when you start kind of tracking those minutes, and once you get to that peak where it's around 34, 36 minutes, the odds are still going to be rather high, plus 1,000, something along those lines. And Chris Middleton is definitely a guy who can go out, get that 20, that 25, that 30-point game, because it hasn't happened since he's returned from injury. One guy that I was looking at before, and I'm kicking myself so hard that I missed it, was Scotty Barnes. I was playing Scotty Barnes 25 points, 30 points, at least once or twice a week, because there was a huge discrepancy from when he got it before in comparison to now. He hadn't got it in like 10 to 12 games. And then he's going off and playing the Lakers, and I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, man, I think the Lakers just have too big of bodies. I'm not going to run it tonight. And then he goes off and gets 30. And for him to get 30 points was like plus 1,700 or something along those lines. So really all I'm saying is if you track players like I do, see how many games it's been since they hit that 25-point mark. See how many games it's been since they hit that 30-point mark. Because if it's been relatively close and they don't do it that often, I'll leave it alone. But if it's been 8 games, 10 games, 12 games, then I might start sprinkling it in there a little bit. Trey Murphy last night. Trey Murphy had 30 plus points. He's another guy who hadn't had it in a long time. So I just wanted to kind of give people a little insight into how I look at some of these props, or if they haven't played for a long time, what I'll start to look at, how I'll start to combine that stuff, because that's how you make those huge SGPs, or those lotto ticket plays that people love. And it's when I track those guys and they've missed for games on end, then it's going to happen at some point generally.
Yeah, on that note too, I want to ask you a question about basically the opposite. When someone's consistently hitting a prop, like say your Booker over 31 and a half rebounds, sorry, over 31 and a half points and assists, right? Say he consistently goes over that in the past 3 weeks, and then his last game he doesn't go over. Wouldn't you want to take that over in the game where it's a pace up game, and he's sort of like a bounce back situation?
For sure. And it's always dependent on the player too, like how consistent or inconsistent is that player. I think Devin Booker's a great example. He's someone who, when he tends to get it going, he tends to keep it going. And another thing I would say is this scenario with Devin Booker is different than that of the past. Right now, he's with Chris Paul, he's with DeAndre Ayton, and then there's not much else. There's Josh Okogie, and Josh Okogie, I give him credit. He's been playing good this season. Torrey Craig, not much of a volume shooter. Their bench, not much going on there. So we should expect Devin Booker 20 to 25 shots. I think that's pretty safe to say. So, yeah, a scenario like that, I'm going to keep going over. And then someone like I've talked about Kevin Huerter before. Kevin Huerter, one of the streakiest guys in the NBA. You see him hit a prop or hit 2 nights in a row, something like that. I might keep it going with him. Same thing with Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard, one of the hottest guys in the world. But someone, and a little insight of where my player prop's going to be, Jrue Holiday. Jrue Holiday, one of the most inconsistent guys in the world. So if I see him hit 3 games in a row, I'm probably going to go with the under after that. So it is very dependent on the player. And like you or I, Ron, we watch a shit ton of basketball. We're in tune with every single game. We know how the guys were shooting. We know how confident they are. You can just see some guys like Julius Randle, not last night against the Lakers, but when he had his off game, I forget who he played, but it was just on his face. He was wearing it. You knew he was not going to hit that point prop. So I think me and you get a pretty good feeling for how consistent or inconsistent some of these guys are. And if you pay attention every night to NBA League Pass, whatever it may be, you really get a feel for how these guys are, because sometimes their personalities play into it as well. There are some guys you see miss 1 shot, 2 shot, 3 shots, and they're done. Their point prop's over. But someone like Zach LaVine, you can get to the 4th quarter, and this guy is so confident, so streaky, that you could be down 20 points, your player prop, and he can go and get it. So it is very dependent on the players as well.
I like that. That's great input into that player prop perspective. All right, well, with that said, let's move into the best bet section. Matt, let's start with you here. What's your best bet for today's show? Also, do you have anything going on the premium side as well?
Yeah, guys. So right now, I don't have anything loaded just yet, but I definitely will. If you take a look at this slate, you can definitely see there's some games that I would love. So I'll definitely have the NBA plays loaded. I've been loading at least 2 or 3 every single day. Last week was kind of just a 500 week. I think we ended up up 2 or 3 units. Nothing crazy, but looking for a bigger week here. And we're going to get it started. I gave you a little insight before, and we're going to go with Jrue Holiday. I said he was one of the most inconsistent guys, but I think this is a great night for him. And it's going to be Jrue Holiday over 26.5 points plus assists. And this is a spot where Jrue Holiday and the Milwaukee Bucks travel on the road to face off against the Phoenix Suns. And this is a spot where this game has a -2 spread and a 244.5 point total to go with it. Or I'm sorry, they're facing the Sacramento Kings. What am I saying? And a 244.5 point total to go with it. And this is a Kings team who has one of the top paces in all of the NBA, and they have the 26th ranked defense to go with it. And you guys have heard me talk about this time and time again. I love pace, and I love bad defense to go with it. The Milwaukee Bucks, on top of that, have one of the highest paces since the All-Star break, and the 11th highest pace in all of basketball this year. This is also a spot where the Milwaukee Bucks will most likely be without Giannis Antetokounmpo, and even if Giannis does play, I still think it's a great spot for Drew Holiday regardless, because with Giannis, Drew generally picks up 2, 3, 4 assists just to Giannis alone. So again, I think it's a great spot, but especially if Giannis doesn't play, I think Drew Holiday is the guy today that picks up the slack and picks up the pace. This is also a perfect spot. Again, you've heard me talk about consistent guys, inconsistent guys. Drew Holiday is one of those guys who is somewhat inconsistent, so you have to pick his spots very carefully. He's coming off missing this number 4 straight games, and because of that, I love this bounce back spot. It's got all the pace, it's got the limited defense, it's got the soft middle of the Sacramento Kings as well. Domantas Sabonis, a great center, but he's kind of one of those guys who's a hybrid. He doesn't exactly protect the middle all that much, and I think it's a great spot for Drew Holiday to attack, run some pick and rolls, get some of those bounce passes, alley-oops, whatever it may be. Okay. And again, like I said, this is a number that Drew Holiday has missed in 4 straight games, but he absolutely loves playing the Kings. He's hit this number against the Kings in 3 out of his last 4 matchups. And one of those games, he actually went over 30 points as well. Okay. In all 4 of those matchups too, he hit over 20 points. So I think if he hits 20 points tonight, he definitely gets at least 6, 7, 8 assists to go with it, hitting over this number. And then also on the season, the Kings are one of the worst teams throughout the NBA against the point guard position, giving up 25.15 points per game and 9 assists to the point guard position to go along with it. So again, whoever matches up with Drew Holiday, I think it's a great spot because it's going to be either De'Aaron Fox, Davion Mitchell, or Malik Monk when he comes off the bench. So either way, I think Drew Holiday has an optimal matchup. I think he's aggressive in this spot. So for me, it's Drew Holiday over 26.5 points plus assists tonight.
Yeah, I like when you can take a prop that has 2 stats and they can go over in just one of them. Like he can get 20, he can get like 30 points in this game tonight if he wanted to, especially if Giannis is out. So I like that look a lot there. For me, I'm going back to one of the games we talked about earlier as well, the Suns and the Warriors. I mentioned how I like the under, and that's going to be my best bet for that for the show today as well. The under here, if we look at both teams post All-Star break, top 7 in defensive rating. Warriors are one of the faster paced teams in the league, but the Suns are a bit slower from an offensive rating standpoint. The Suns are 5th in the league, but Warriors are just 19th. But the biggest aspect here is just really the home road splits for both of these teams here. Like I mentioned, how well the Warriors are doing offensively and against the spread, but defensively they've been strong at home as well. That's why they're 20-14 to the under this season at home. If you look at them in when the total is at 230 or greater, they're 28-1 to the under, and also 28-1 allowing their team totals to go, allowing opponent's team total to go under as well, averaging just allowing 110.9 per game. So to me, a lot of the numbers are looking towards an under game here. If you look at the Suns' combined score on the road, especially as road dogs, 224.8 per game in road dog situations this year, gone under in 4 straight road dog situations since the start of February. And the biggest thing for me here is like I mentioned earlier, I think the Warriors can take care of business tonight. I think it's going to really be taken care of from the defensive side of the ball. And if you want to take the full game under, I think that's the way to go. But you can also look at the Suns team total under as well. I think they're going to struggle in this spot with the Bucks on deck as well, playing the first leg of back-to-back games. If this gets out of hand, this might be a situation where the Suns shut it down early with Booker and those guys. But I think this is going to be a tight game till the end here. I think it's going to be a playoff atmosphere type game. And typically in those types of scenarios, I do like the under. Like I mentioned earlier, it did open up pretty high this morning, and it steamed down to 236.5, some 236. But I think there's still room here. I think they both struggle to combine for 230 in my book. I think that's the way to go. As far as the premium side here, I haven't placed anything yet on the premium side either. But I do think that I'm going to get there to the window with this game here at the 236 mark, 236.5 if you're line shopping. Another thing is too, I have a couple of games that I was eyeing last night, but there's just a whole bunch of injury statuses that I need to be updated with, because questionables don't mean what they used to mean before. Also, so you've seen it in the last week or so that a lot of players who were not on the injury report the night before end up getting downgraded the day of and then not end up not playing. So to me, really towards the end of the season here, especially with those teams who are in playoff position, to set themselves, as far as like the top six in each conference here, playoff positioning is really important to some of these teams, and I think they're gonna be very weary of load management to close out the season. So I really want to, kind of wait till the morning of, or until I hear proper injury statuses, especially on some of these teams here. So probably afternoon is when I post the plays moving forward in the NBA, just to get one of the later injury status reports. But other than that, guys, I think this one's going to be one of them, that Suns and Warriors under 36 there. With that said, guys, this is the end of the show. Matt, obviously Monday, $9 Mondays, whenever we post our packages, they'll be available for $9 today. But any last words before we cut out here?
Yeah, man. Kind of branching off of $9 Mondays. I know that's kind of off of the package and stuff like that. But as of late, I have been seeing some people starting to pick up our package and stuff like that, getting the NBA all-inclusive deal, things like that. And I think that's huge, just for the pure fact that, every single day, Ron and I and other NBA cappers are putting off plays, and you're kind of putting all your weight on one single play, when in reality, you're trying to win every single week. You're trying to win every single month. You're trying to be positive at the end and go on to the next. Obviously, we want to win every single play. And that's why, I take it so hard when I lose, and I know Ron does as well, because all we want to do is put out winners. But I do want to say how important that is to get that package, to get the week long, the month long, or anything along those lines, because that's generally what the goal is. All of us are human. We're going to have off days, and you'll potentially even have an off week. And when that happens, you move on to the next one. It's a clean slate. You might be in the red, but the next one you're trying to be in the green, the next one you're trying to be a green. So at the end of the month, we're in that positive. So that's how, cappers like myself, cappers like Ron, a lot of the time that's how we look at it, because, shit happens in the NBA. Last week I had a 2-day run where I had 4 plays, and 4 of those guys got injured during the game. You can't predict that. That's just how it goes sometimes. So for me, when someone buys that play, say that's the only play you bought, and the dude plays 1 minute, and Mark Williams of the Charlotte Hornets, and gets hurt and goes out the game, that really sucks. I hate when that happens, because again, we just want to give out winners. So that's why we do push these week-long packages, these month-long packages, things like that. So at least you're with us for that week, that month, and you can see, the type of plays that I put out, the writing style, and the type of angles that I get and that we look for each and every day. So not only are you just getting a play, you're getting some strategy behind it, things like that as well. And again, it's about the long-term goal. Yes, we're attacking every single day, but it's a long-term goal. You're trying to be positive at the end of the year, taking it day by day, week by week, month by month, and so on. So just wanted to add that to it as well, because we do put so much work, so much thought, and me, my feelings are in it as well. Anytime I lose, absolutely hate it. So again, that's why we do push those week-long packages, the month, whatever it may be, because we want you guys to be with us, through the entire time. We're in the trenches with you together. We're all taking these plays. So again, guys, just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, like just last week too, as well. I had 3 games where I had an under, and they were under in regulation. Ended up going into OT on some, last minute shots or last second shots, crazy shots too, as well. So yeah, I think the week long, month long packages are the way to go. And also, you get set up with like text messages and stuff, so you get your picks sent to you when they go in. Yeah. With that said, guys, our next show is on Wednesday. We'll have Jeff Michaels with us. And yeah, till then, guys, good luck with our reaction. Peace.
Peace.
Each and every Monday is $9 Monday at wagertalk.com, and all daily picks packages are priced at only $9, including 5% best bets, normally priced at $35. As an added bonus, any picks packages loaded early for overnight Tuesday or action during the week will also be priced at $9 until midnight on Monday. So make sure to take advantage of getting these $25 and $35 picks for only $9 before the clock strikes 12 and they return to regular price.